Okay, Bharat, you can start. I think everyone is here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so just give you background to everyone, what we are looking at. Obviously Bharat will tell you. Okay, so very recently we did one demo to a client a potential client in Malaysia, where Bharat, who wanted to understand whether we know WAF and we know what is WAF used for. Okay, so Bharat created a very interesting demo for him. So just so that all you guys know that ways to hack a portal, and WAF stops you from or stops the hackers from using those top 10 techniques to hack. Okay, that is what primarily this web application firewall does. Okay, so Bharat is going to show you today how hackers use those 10 techniques and try to hack your portal, and how WAF would stop all of them. So that is the bottom line of this demo, which you're going to see. Go on, Bharat.
Yeah. Thank you. So you all can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll quickly walk you through the presentation and some definitions of that. So good morning, everyone. This is Bharat Kumar. I'm part of the DevOps team here in Menfi. So today we will be seeing how we can leverage WAF to block all the top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities. OWASP is a foundation which defines these set of standards for security related things. So this coming to the definition of WAF, this is a textbook definition of WAF. So AWS WAF is a web application firewall that helps you protect your web applications or APIs against this common web exploits. So WAF basically acts as a first line of defense in your architecture. So WAF basically is it takes set of rules and evaluate the incoming request based on that rule. So if it matches the rule, it basically stops or allows the traffic to the origin server. So we'll be seeing that demo how WAF works in action in coming slides. So some common attack patterns such as so we will be seeing some attack patterns such as this SQL injection and cross-site scripting, and also few cross-site request forgery attacks. So coming to the top 10 OWASP vulnerabilities, these are the top 10 vulnerabilities. You can see that in front of you. So few of them are these SQL injection. I mean, basically injection. So wherein the attacker injects some malicious scripts or malicious SQL queries into your application. So as I said, we will be seeing that in detail in the coming slides. So another one is broken authentication. So if your application has some authentication mechanism which is broken, so how do WAF prevent that from happening? I mean, how do WAF prevent a malicious attacker bypassing the authentication mechanism of your portal? And also similarly, we have sensitive data exposure, and as I said, broken access control, which is similarly related to this. The core application, so wherein you have any broken authentication mechanism or broken access control, which a hacker can exploit to perform a privilege escalation or or something of such sort. So we can also mitigate security misconfiguration. I mean, not mitigate. We can block if there are any security misconfigurations in our application, so which will allow the hacker to exploit our application. We can mitigate or block that. Similarly, we have cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting is a vulnerability. I mean, is a type of attack which a hacker can leverage to inject some malicious JavaScript code into your database. So coming to how WAF works, as I said, WAF is the first line of defense. So it basically sits in front of your application load balancer or Amazon CloudFront distribution, or your API gateway if you have your APIs running in Lambda or EC2. So how basically WAF works is we create few policies on which in which we write few rules. So WAF examines every request coming onto your application load balancer or Amazon CloudFront distribution, and it evaluates that request based on our rules. So if some request matches that rule, so WAF will immediately block that request there. So WAF also provides this detailed logging and monitoring with help of Amazon CloudWatch. So we can monitor each and every request, how many requests are blocked and how many requests are have gone through. So coming to the features, some of the features of WAF. So WAF supports, as I said, this is basically a rule engine which evaluates the incoming rules. So these rules can be custom rules or managed rule. So custom rules are written by ourselves. So if you have any custom requirement to block some application specific, if there are any application specific rules, you can write those rules and you can protect your web application. So there are also managed rules in the marketplace which you can subscribe to and apply to your WAF. And coming to the features, it supports virtual patching. So what virtual patching is? So you're all aware of these common CMS portals like Drupal, WordPress, and some CMS. So these CMS will be publishing its vulnerabilities. I mean, so the vulnerabilities keep on coming in these CMS portals. So what WAF supports is WAF has some managed rules wherein the vendors, the vendor which we bought from, the managed rule, they will patch it virtually. So as soon as the vulnerability of that portal is out, they'll virtually patch that vulnerability remotely. So we will. So what basically virtual patching is? Our rules are getting updated real time. So as soon as the vulnerability is out, our vendor will patch that rule automatically. So there are another feature is IP reputation list, wherein you can have a set of reputed IP list or blacklisted IP. I mean, some malicious IPs. So you can altogether block that IP. And SQL injection, wherein this SQL injection, malicious hacker or an attacker will inject this SQL query, malicious SQL query into our application. Similarly, we have cross-site scripting, and WAF can also stop this HTTP floods. So basically a DDoS attack, wherein we can write a rule so that WAF evaluate that request, and if it is coming from an IP multiple times, so we can set a rate of some 1,000 or 2,000. If the request exceeds that rate in a minute in a given time, so WAF also blocks that request. We can similarly protect WAF, our application from bots and scrapers. So WAF has some proprietary machine learning algorithms, which uh, so what I'm trying to tell is WAF gets smarter over time. I mean, WAF learns how our traffic patterns are, how the attack patterns are, and uh, and molds itself to that attack pattern. So AWS uses some proprietary machine learning algorithms to improve the WAF identification and the blocking. So this is WAF in action. So as I said, it is the first line of defense. So these are our clients. So there are set of valid users and mobile client, and also few attackers. So WAF will be sitting in front of our application load balancer here. You can see, and this can be anything: application load balancer or a CloudFront distribution or an Amazon API gateway. So WAF will be evaluating all the requests from incoming the valid users or the mobile clients or the attackers. So if it finds any if the request matches our rule, so it blocks the request there itself. It won't be forwarding that request to the application load balancer or the origin server. So I'll quickly walk you through the demo of WAF, how WAF works in action real time. So we have this. So this is a sample application. So we'll be performing few attacks on this application and see how WAF blocks them. So to show you how WAF console looks like, so this is the WAF console. So we already have an access control list created. So these are the 10 set of rules which we have created, and every rule is set to allow all the requests. So we won't be blocking any request for this demo purpose. So later we'll be blocking every single one of them and seeing how WAF block this request. So right now we have set WAF to allow all the requests. So WAF won't be monitoring, just WAF will be sitting there and doing nothing. So this particular application is a vulnerable application. So we'll be using this for our demo purpose. So right now we are on the login page of this application. So right now we don't know the username. I mean, we know some username, or we don't know the password of that user. So we'll be trying some users to bypass this. I mean, we'll try to log into this application now. So we don't know the password and we only know the username. So what I'll be doing now is I'll be performing an SQL injection. So what that does is it basically resets the password of that user. So we can set that password So whatever we want. So here is the Postman console. We'll be performing this attack through Postman, and this is the endpoint of our application. So we'll be sending this payload, wherein the username is Rick, and along with that payload, we are passing some query. So what this query does is it updates the password of the user whose username is Rick, and will set the password to password itself. So when we send this payload, so the response says internal server error. So what happened here is it successfully executed this query, and the server didn't understand what just happened, and it just returned internal server error. So if we use the same credentials, username Rick and password to log in, we'll go through. So here we go. This application has allowed us. So we have broken that password, or we have inserted some query to reset this to change this password of this user. So this is the application. So we'll be performing the same SQL injection with by blocking the request in the WAF console. So we'll quickly log this out, and so we'll try to
while creating the web form, we can filter these injections and strings, right?
So yes, you can do it on the application side. You can filter that. I mean, you can basically escape those characters, the quotes and all. So you can do that on the application. But I mean, as I said, the WAF is the first line of defense. So you can always filter that in your application. But I mean, just in case your application can't filter those, you can use WAF in the first place to mitigate those attacks, or to block those attacks.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll now perform that attack by blocking those requests. So this is a rule particular, I mean, specific to that SQL injection. So we'll block the SQL injection rule. So we have blocked that, and we'll perform the same request again with the same payload. So it now says 403 forbidden. So what happened here is WAF detected this query in the request, and it blocked the request there itself. I mean, it didn't forward that request to the our application server. So 403 is a HTTP code which says you can't be moved further, or that your request is forbidden, your access is forbidden. So similarly, this is it for blocking the SQL injection. So similarly, if we pass any kind of malicious query here, so WAF detects that and blocks the request there. Similarly, we will perform in other vulnerabilities. So we'll quickly log into this account. So as I said, we will now move to the cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting is basically where the attacker injects some kind of JavaScript code into your web application. So this is basically performed on the input fields or some kind of forms in your application. So we'll now perform SQL so this cross-site scripting, where to retrieve the token stored in our local storage. So, this is a payload. This is a malicious payload where it retrieves the JWT token. I mean, the access token. Token is a kind of password for our. You can think of it as a password stored in our local storage. So every time this web application performs request, sends a request to the server, it also attaches that token so that the server will know it is coming from the right source or a right user. So what we'll be doing is we will try to steal that token. So I have successfully run this payload. So the request has gone through, and we have inserted a command with this malicious script. So what this script basically does is so I'll show you this payload again. So what this does is every time the page loads, so it sends it alerts the user with the JWT token. I mean the session token. So if you reload this page, you can see an alert box which says I mean which spits out this token here. So in this is just an example of how attack can be performed. So an attacker can include his or her own domain name here, and he can perform a get request with that session. I mean with that session token. So these session tokens, when that page reloads, what happens is it sends that JWT token to the remote web server, and this way the attacker can steal the usernames. I mean steal the token, session tokens, or the login tokens. So we will perform it once again. So as you can see, so it went through. Now what we'll do is we'll block this this particular rule, this cross-site scripting rule, and we'll perform the same attack once again. So I mean, this console to your right allows you to see the request, what are incoming and what are outgoing from the web application. So I'll try to submit this. So when I try to submit this, it says the request failed with status 403. As I said, 403. is a status code which says your access is forbidden. So here we have successfully executed that query, but the WAF blocked the request, seeing there is a malicious payload in that request. So it says all the requests are failed with status 403. Here. So these are all the blocked requests. So now I'll quickly show what requests are blocked till now. So you can see these are the requests which have gone through WAF. So we once executed with WAF disabled, it says action allowed. So this is my public IP. So we have performed an attack on this host using this user agent. We have used Postman to perform that request. So similarly, you can see another request which has been blocked from the same IP and the same user agent. So this is the request which matched this generic SQLi rule. So similarly, we'll try a few more attacks. I mean,
Bharat, sorry to interrupt. Bharat?
Sorry.
Yeah. Bharat, sorry to interrupt. I have a small doubt at here. Okay.
Yeah.
See, previously when I observed one attack, attackers have used like multiple VPNs to hide their original IP addresses. So and they took care of multiple security precautions in terms of identifying their public IP and then the request patterns and how they posted their query and all that. See what my question directly to you was, is there any way in this service where we can identify such kind of patterns like that?
So you said they're using VPNs to mask their IP address, right?
Yes, Bharat.
So and they are performing some kind of attacks. Hiding behind the VPN.
Hiding behind the VPNs. It's like
yes.
They are using the multiple VPNs. It's like darknet where the original IP cannot be tracked. They might be using 4 to 5 VPNs to attack the original service.
Okay.
This happened in my last company where they have no choice of, because even the database is so vulnerable, so they have attacked us using XSS scripting itself. So is there any way or where we can provide some kind of solutions at this kind of a scenarios?
So yes, I so to answer your question, yes, there will be kind of rule. You can do a rate based. So wherein you write a rule to say WAF that if a request, I mean, if some requests come more than 2,000 times or 1,000 times, I mean, you can set that threshold, or you can set that limit from a specific IP address. You can block that request for a minute or two. So in that way, you can block the request coming from the same IP, as you said, the VPN IP. And also you can do one more thing. There are a few vendors who give you reputed IP list, or the blacklisted IP list. So most of the VPN IPs are blacklisted. So you can always get that set of IP addresses around across the world. The VPN, I mean the IP sets, you call it in the WAF terminology. You can get those IP sets and apply it to your ACL, apply it to your rule, and you can filter out those IP addresses. So even if they try to use a new IP address, so they can be filtered out using a rate based rule, as I said. So even I mean, you can say even if they bypass that rate based limit somehow, so they can be filtered at another level using that patterns, the SQL injection patterns or the cross-site scripting patterns, as I said. So we basically we can have three layers of protection. So first one is the IP reputed IP field based filtering, and then we can have this rate limiting, and we can also have this rule based on patterns specific to SQL injection or cross-site scripting. Did that answer your question, Sai?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and maybe I have it might be a debatable one. Even I heard that the VPN IP address is not static, and change for every 30 seconds. So that means
So
when we have 2 to 3 VPN walls in between the hacker and the service, right? So at that point of a time, the the masking of VPN IPs keeps on changes at every 30 seconds, which will be connected again and again. Where by using this IP IP filtering and all that cannot be possible. In my view, maybe there might be some kind of a
So
solution.
as I said, even if they bypass that IP filtering, so they will be
Mhm.
caught at the next level, the rate level or the pattern. I mean that request pattern level. So
Okay.
you can I mean, you can enable multiple layers wherein you can block that attack at any level.
Don't we have any specific kind of a service, like we are using multiple layers over here to identify such kind of an attacks? See, is there any specific single way to identify whether the person is using a VPN or not, whether he is using a dynamic IP range or like that? Is there any way?
The only way we can identify if a user is using a VPN by their source IP. So,
Okay.
as I said, there are these VPN IP sets published on the internet. So you can always take those IPs and match the source IP with the list, so that you can identify if the traffic is originating from a VPN or not.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. So we have completed this cross-site scripting. So Now we'll move on to other attack. So there is this size based restriction, size based allow or size based this allow or deny rule. So what to give you an overview how this works. So if an attacker performs a request which is unusual in size, though, so if the size of that request exceeds the request, if the size of that request payload exceeds a specific level, so we can set a WAF rule to allow or block that request. So if I show you this rule, so it says when a request matches at least one of the filter in the size constraint condition. So if the length of the body is greater than 4096, it allows or denies the rule. I mean, based on our setting. So it allows or denies the rule. Also, if the length of query string is greater than 1024, or the length of URI is greater than 512, and you can also see the size of the header. If the size of the header, a specific header, is greater than this size, so it will block that request there. So we will perform some attack, and we'll see. So here you can see the size of this cookie header. So this is something unusual. So I have kept this size to more than 4093 to just for this demonstration purposes. So when we perform this request, so it says internal server error. Basically, it didn't understand what this cookie header is, or that request is. So 500 error will be returned by the application server. So we can here say that the application went through the WAF, and it successfully bypassed the WAF and reached that application server. So this particular code, so status code, will be returned by the application servers. So we'll now edit this rule to block unusual sizes. Size rule is set to allow. Now we'll block it. So it updated that. We perform the same request again. So now it says 403 forbidden. So that unusual size has been detected by the WAF, and there. And similarly, moving to other rules. So we have this blacklisted IP rule, as I said in the previous question. So you can block this IP here. So I'll be adding my public IP to the list, so that I can block the request originating from my IP. So I'm adding my public IP to this range, to the blacklisted IP range. So this is my IP. So now this rule is set to allow all the requests. So now we'll perform a login. So we have now successfully logged in. So it says 200 OK. So we'll now block all the requests from my IP. So we'll set it to block and we'll update the ACL. Yeah, you can see it says 403 forbidden. So WAF is not allowing me to access this application. So because I have added that my public IP in that blacklisted IP list, so it basically blocked me from accessing the web application. So if you perform some kind of request from the postman too, so it says 403 forbidden. So this is how blacklisting works in the path. So this you can see is a IP set of IP addresses or IP ranges. So this list can be updated dynamically, or you can statically. I mean, you can add few static IP address. You can always use this WAF API, AWS SDK, or some kind of API to update this list manually or dynamically, I can say. So this is it for IP blacklisting. So we'll quickly move to other rules. So we have covered unusual sizes, blacklisted IPs, SQL injection, and this cross-site scripting. So we'll now move to traversal attack. So traversal attack is basically wherein an attacker uses some kind of traversal techniques to scan our internal IPs. So you can think. So let me quickly show you the demo how it works. So if you have launched an instance in the in some specific VPC, so you give some. Usually we follow some kind of CIDR rules. I mean, this pattern will be same. Our VPC CIDR will be something like this: 10.0.0.1, something of this kind. So this is a IP range, or we can always have our own IP 192.168. This is also common IP range we use for VPC CIDR. So these are well-known IP ranges, internal IP ranges. So what attacker does is if you have same, two EC2 instances running in the same VPC, so he can guess that range, or he can perform a traversal. He keeps on increasing this IP range. The IP. He performs a traversal attack. So this particular endpoint will crawl through this HTTP endpoint and returns particular endpoint. So that particular IP. So we will perform a request. Okay, so it is blocking my IP. We'll quickly disable that. So you can think of this IP. I mean, this as an internal IP range. So we have a few servers running on 172.22.0.2 and 0. Some we have some internal sites running on that. So we'll perform a request. We'll scan this 172.22.0.1. So it says internal server error. So it basically it found nothing on that IP. So we an attacker will increase this number by 1, and he performs the request again. So it returns some kind of information. So some mail IDs or so what just happened is we have revealed some sensitive information to the attacker. So similarly, an attacker will keep on increasing this number, and he'll keep performing this request again and again. So we have something in 172.22.0.3. So similarly, he'll increase this again. On 4, it found nothing, so it says internal server error. So he'll keep on increasing this number until he finds some kind of server or some kind of internal website for him. So we will now set WAF to block this kind of attacks. So traversal is now set to allow. We'll block this thing. So we send the same payload again. So you can see that this attack is now blocked by WAF 403 forbidden. For some reason, it was not blocking earlier.
Keep continuing. At least people should know the idea of what is happening.
Yes, yeah.
What is that attack? What do people do in that attack? That is the bottom line. Baki problems we can always resolve. So no worries.
Yeah. Okay. So this was about the traversal attack. So to give you an overview, uh, in traversal attack, an attacker will be traversing through the internal IP range. So I mean, until he finds something useful or something some sensitive information. So we'll be keeping on traversing the IP ranges. So we have used WAF to block such kind of attacks. And we'll move to the detect insecure PHP directives rule. So this rule, so if you are running a PHP website, there are few. If you have misconfigured your PHP server, so it will allow user to uh, modify the server configuration. So this can be achieved using some PHP specific directives. These are few to show. So disable functions and I mean, if you are a PHP developer, you must be aware of these PHP directives. Uh, this server and the environment, this disable and allow URL include. These are I mean specific to the PHP thing. All this. So we'll now see if this rule is blocked or allowed. So this insecure PHP directives is set to allow, and we'll now block that thing. So I'm basically this application is not a PHP application, but we'll try to simulate that attack and see how WAF responds to it. So this particular attack will have no impact on that our application. So we'll just simulate that attack and see how WAF behaves here. So we have set it to block the request. Now I'm performing this request with this disable functions directive and also this server directive. So as you can see, the WAF has blocked this request. So we'll set it to allow and see how it behaves now. So it basically detected this PHP directives, these both PHP directives in the request, in the URI, and matched this rule, this PHP insecure rule, and blocked that request. So if you send it again, so it may take some time to reflect the change. So I'm removing my IP from this blacklisted line. Okay. Now it says 400 bad requests. So this particular status code is returned by the application server, meaning so this request has gone through WAF and it successfully went ahead of WAF and reached that application server. So if this particular server was an the PHP server, so it would have done some, there would have been some impact on that server. So this particular application server is not a PHP server, so it returned a bad request error. So if the status code is anything other than 403 forbidden, so you can think of it as a status code returned by the application server. So you can assume that the request has gone through the WAF. So this is for insecure detecting insecure PHP directives in the request. And similarly, we have cross-site remote forgery, and this server-side includes, and block the admin access. So we will, I think, we'll take a minute or two to quickly discuss what these are. So coming to the server-side includes, this rule will prevent the user from accessing these kind of files. So these are a few backup files, and accessing this will prevent users from accessing log files. Many application servers will have this directory, includes directory, where it stores the configuration files or some sensitive file. And also we are blocking all config users from accessing all config files, .ini files. I mean, these are some kind of files we are blocked. So if we perform a request, if we try to access this php.ini file, it says for not found. So that particular file is not found on the web directory. So if similarly we search for some configuration files or some backup files. So every message says 404. As I said, anything other than 403 is returned by the application. I mean, by the application server itself. So we'll quickly set this rule to block all the requests. Server side includes we set to block. We'll update. So it now says 403. It is returned by the WAF. So if this prevents the attacker from accessing some kind of files, some kind of sensitive files, such as configuration files. So some files with insecure permissions or something. So I mean, as a thumb rule, you always have to verify your server permissions or the folder permissions which you give, and this is just a backup, just in case if you have misconfigured your server or you have set insecure permissions to your files or folders. So this will prevent, WAF will prevent any accidental reveal of these configuration files. So we'll move to admin access prevention. So some kind of sites such as WordPress sites or some kind of CMS, some kind of CMS portals will have this admin console. So admin console is restricted to administrators only. So so site owners don't want their admin console to be visible to the general public. So we'll quickly see what's inside this rule. So there are two conditions here. So one condition will see when a request does not originate from the IP set, and when a request matches this, and or when a user is accessing this admin directory. So suppose we have an admin portal here. We don't have any admin portal for this application, but we are just simulating that. So if we try to access this admin portal, so it says for 404 not found. So if there was an application, I mean, if there was an admin console there, it would have shown that to the user. So what we'll do, we'll now quickly block this rule. So this rule is not limited to this admin portal. So if there are any internal applications or internal routes, so which you want to prevent from the general public to access it, you can always change this rule to allow that specific route, or block that specific route. You can always do that. So we'll now block this admin access rule. Yeah. Update this. So we perform the same request again. So it now says forbidden. So it prevented us from accessing that admin portal now. So admin portal can be accessed. I mean, you can always whitelist few IPs, only the administrator or your organization IP. To whitelist that IP, you just go to. So if you see this rule, it says when a request does not originate from an IP address and matches this route, so it will block that request there. So we'll quickly add my IP to the whitelist, so that it will give me that access. So we have another IP set which says generic match admin IP. I'll add my IP range to that list, so that we can access that application. We have now added our IP to the whitelist. Yeah, it says not found. So meaning we have successfully whitelisted our IP, and we have gone to that application admin console. So if you want to test this rule, I'm quickly pinging you the URL. If you access this, so it should say 403 forbidden file, because your IP is not whitelisted in this WAF rule. So we have now covered, I guess, all the rules. Where are these?
So, Bharat, just a quick question.
Yeah, Arun,
So,
go ahead.
you have created the web ACL, right? And the rules did you
Yes.
create on your own based on your discussion, or you just took a
Uh,
template and
I
executed?
mean, for demo, those rules are not, I mean, the final rules. I mean, just for the, those are custom rules.
Okay.
So, as I said, you're free to create your own rules, or there are few cloud formation templates provided by AWS, which can pretty much block all the common vulnerabilities. And
Okay.
also there are few vendors who in the marketplace who supply these WAF rules. I mean
Yes. Yes.
rules
So,
specific to
so
WAF.
okay. The reason I'm asking is that currently what we are doing is we are just picking up the AWS standard cloud formation template and
Yeah.
executing that and creating the web tools automatically. So I
Yes.
just
Yes.
want to know how robust that created rules are there, or do we need to do some additional packing so that the security may not be compromised?
So I mean, as I said, this is not an final. So they keep in the market. There are vulnerabilities keep on the vulnerabilities keep on coming every day. So this is not, as I said, the final list. So this is not the robust one, as you
Okay.
have asked.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you need to do some customizations or write your own rules to prevent I mean further attacks. So
And
this is the basic rules, as I can say.
okay, okay, fine, fine. So, and also we have an option of managed rules in WAF also, right? I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
sure if you're covering this in this section or not.
So come again. I lost you, I
I'm,
guess.
I'm not sure if you're covering managed rules also here in this presentation.
No, these are custom rules.
Okay, okay, fine. So, in that case, so managed rules will evade this problem, right? I mean, we no need to update the rules every time if
No,
they.
no, no. Yeah, managed rules will be updated by AWS or that vendor which you, I mean, from which you purchase that
Okay.
subscription. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So
So,
do we have any free alternative of managed rules in AWS, not from the vendors,
so
which is
free alternatives. I guess we don't have any free alternative. I mean, there is a subscription based thing. So
Mhm.
what you can do, you can always search on the, I mean, the community rules. So this particular uh, so there are community rules which they are in the form of cloud formation templates. You can based on the, I mean, the compliance rules, PCI compliance, the OWASP compliance. So this particular rules, this set of rules which I have created are specific to OWASP. So similarly, we will have different rules which are created by community. If you don't want to purchase the subscription, you're always free to take that cloud formation templates and execute. I mean, to create, and you can modify it to your own needs always.
okay, 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 fine. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and we so I guess we have covered all the 10 rules. Now we'll see the request which we have blocked till now. So I mean, we can filter the logs based on the rule here. We see now we see the blacklisted IP rule. We'll refresh this. Blacklisted IPs. Yeah. You can see the source IP and the request we performed and the rule it matched and the action it performed. So you can see the detailed log here. So if you want even detailed detailed log, you can go to the CloudWatch console and see this logs. So right now we have logging disabled here. So we can't see it on CloudWatch. So any questions till now regarding WAF or rules, custom managed rules? Or am I still with you?
Yes, Bharat. I mean, I'm good from my side.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any doubts? So I guess we are good for now. So this is it from my side. So we have covered how we can mitigate OS top 10 vulnerabilities. I mean, I guess we can wrap this up now.
Thanks, Bharat. Thanks for the session.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, Bharat.